Hello, everybody. Welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. It is, what is it, October 2nd?
October 2nd.
October 2nd, 2013. And welcome to the show, whether you're watching us on MPTS or online at ipmnation.com/MCUTV. And I do want to remind you, if you are watching online, of course, all the information is there if you want to interact with us during the show. The phone number to call if you're watching us live, also the phone number to text if you're too shy to call. And, of course, we do have an active chat room online as well. And we do have a couple of great guests with us we'll get to in a moment. A couple quick programming notes. First of all, this will be Little Mel's last show with us on the television edition of the show. So she's got some other career things happening. So she will no longer be available at this time on Wednesdays. But she will, of course, still be continuing her show Monday nights. No Boundaries, Mondays at 10:30 Eastern on IPMNation.com. So she'll continue to be a part of IPM. Also, too, another programming note. Next week, I will not be here either. So the Honorable George Lambert will be filling in. I have to go out of town for a couple days on business, so I will not be available. But George is, of course, he's been a guest on this show. He's also done Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades with Gary and I several times. And I'm not sure what the topic will be when George guest hosts the show, but I assume it will have something to do with liberty. I think that's fair to assume. So
it is.
And
Yeah.
and we do have a couple of great guests with us, of course, returning. Probably our most frequent guest in the history of the show, I think, the Honorable John Heichel.
Thank you, Matt.
You are the
Honorable.
You are the Honorable.
I thought he was the most
and
honorable.
I am John Heichel.
Gary refers to you as the most honorable.
Yeah, what did you do to earn that title?
I can't tell you. I really can't tell you that.
All right. Well, we'll leave that to the to everyone's imagination.
What happens in where stays in where.
We were in Where earlier, so
And you didn't stay though.
Oh, we didn't.
Oh,
It's Where.
you're supposed to. Okay.
That's more of a place you drive through than go to and stay.
Get gas.
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
empty.
I did see a gas station, I think.
Yeah.
I think there was a gas station there.
And a Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes. And also we have with us Gus Breton. And Gus, where are you? This is your first time on the show, so fill us in a little bit.
Well, John's my state rep, and we've been working together on a Common Core petition, which we put online last night. John and I worked on a petition for Stand Your Ground back in April, which was filed and has currently about 540 signatures. It's waiting to be heard before the general court. And we've been friends for a long time. John's my mechanic and takes really good care of me at the shop.
Excellent, excellent. Is that how you guys met?
Yes, it is.
So tell me, what happened? Did you just strike up a conversation one day about politics and local issues, and then you realized you
can't really
were like-minded, or
you can't really go to John's garage and not talk about this stuff. It's, everybody, a lot of his customers are very aware of what's going on, and they
Sure.
like to talk.
Yeah.
So if you happen to stop in,
yeah,
and John's always willing to engage in that conversation.
yeah,
It's the Floyd's Barbershop of auto repair.
yeah. Very good.
How's that?
That's excellent. And that's is that Andy Griffith?
Yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure I've got the reference right in my own mind. No one younger than us has any idea. Mel probably doesn't even.
I know who Andy
All
Griffith
right,
is.
good. Just checking.
Thanks.
Tell us, let's start with Common Core, because a lot of viewers probably have no idea what that is exactly. It's got one of these cryptic names, so probably intentionally. A lot of these, you ever notice that a lot of these things, they have names where you can't tell from just the name of it. Well, what does that mean? Oh, Common Core. Oh, that sounds like something positive. But if you don't know what it is,
Right.
Then you don't, you're just being led by the name and you don't know. So what is Common Core?
It's a, and you're right about that. It's kind of like always you're in kind of like a government special ops kind of code name,
Yeah.
So you never really know what it is. But Common Core is basically the funding mechanism of Race to the Top, which has taken over or superseded No Child Left Behind. And that was, some people think it was a success. A lot of us don't necessarily. I know in Goffstown and small towns and big towns, the federal government promised to pay something like 43 or 47% of the No Child Left Behind fees, and I don't think they have paid 14% at the time. So now that's getting passed along. It's been
Well, I was going to say the knock I always heard on No Child Left Behind was that it was massively underfunded by the federal government. Is that correct?
well, it wasn't supposed to be. They had
Yeah.
promised to do it,
Right.
But they'd always, they always put that carrot out there. We'll give you 43% or 50%, but you come up with the other 50%. So you try to come up with the other 50%, and then they come up with 13 or 14%, and now you're 35% short, and you've got to go back to your taxpayers and ask them for more money.
Right.
And that's where that happens time and time again. So, I guess the moral of the story is don't take federal funding.
I was going to say something I've learned just in the last couple of years, because prior to that I was really ignorant to this, is that with a lot of things, or maybe all these programs, I don't know, it probably depends on what it is, but the federal government says, okay, we're going to give you this money, or it might be 100% on something, we're going to fully fund this for you for 2 years. But if you opt into this, I mean, I'm not using a specific example, just if you opt into this, whatever imaginary program it is, after that 2 years, you're on the hook.
All the time.
So people don't realize that when, something might sound like a great idea, and the federal government comes along and says, look, we have this great idea, this is free money from the federal government.
Right.
And people don't realize that once you buy into that, that money, that free money, which obviously isn't really free, you'll get that for a couple of years, and then you got to find a way to work that into your state budget, or you're screwed.
There's nothing that's not a contract. If it requires a signature, it's a contract. And people that don't believe that are in denial.
Yeah.
Why would they want you to? Why do you have to sign this? Why do you have to agree to this and to that if it's not a contract? And if it's a contract, then you have a very specific performance that's due on your part. So you better know what that is.
Yeah.
And a lot of towns, they love the free money.
Sure.
But then it's time to perform, and they can't.
You know what it reminds me of? Those you see these online, these little marketing schemes where you sign up for something, and it's supposed to be a free trial. But then at the end of the process, they ask you for your credit card number and everything, because, you get it free for 10 days, and then your free trial's up, and then you're going to get charged, and then they make it really hard for you to cancel whatever it is you just opted into.
Right. Except they can get in trouble for deceptive practices.
Right.
And that's the difference between that and the federal government.
Yeah.
The other thing that I find is, that, and you're right about the programs. Whenever you apply for a grant, fire departments do it, police departments, DPWs, all the departments apply for these grants, and the federal government says, we'll give you, or there's funding coming through to hire, 2 police officers or 3, whatever, or do this or that, and but it's only going to be good for 3 years, and then after that they're yours. So that's where the huge expenses come in.
Yeah.
And that's the hook. But we got to, we for some reason, after time and time and time again, we can't get our local governing boards to stop accepting these grants and this federal money. Sometimes I don't even know if it's when it's appropriate to do it, but I would say the way things are looking right now, I'm hoping that Goffstown stops taking these federal grants and stops applying for them. Do it less. We'll make it. We'll be fine. And by the way, I'm also, I am a state representative for Goffstown, representing the town of Goffstown, and I'm also the chair of the planning board in Goffstown.
Okay.
So we just went through this huge Plan Bernardville issue over there.
Yeah.
That was all out there, and it had to do basically with the selectmen accepting $50,000 grant to hire a consultant to tell us in Goffstown how Bernardville should look to be sustainable for the future. I mean, it's 250 years old. That's sustainable.
Right.
But but they want to tell us how to make it look better.
Right.
So we actually voted that down, and now we're dealing with what's called the SMART code, and another one of those Common Core things, right? So, what's a SMART code? I don't know. I mean, is it smart? What is it? Does it? So I think so now we're going to have to address that issue too, because we accepted the money, we took the contract, and we fulfilled our obligation according to HUD and the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. But is it really done? And we'll be voting on that this coming next Thursday.
Something that's very. I saw the process that went through in Goffstown, catching the tail end of it mostly. What's very much the same as Common Core is in Goffstown, the selectmen decided this was a good idea. They put the grant in, and then the planning board was stuck having to deal with it.
Okay.
In Common Core, you've got 5 Department of Education people. I'm not sure what their titles are, but they decided Common Core was good. They accepted it, and now all the school systems are stuck dealing with it. And so, this kind of the lack of local accountability in a smaller town, 500-600 people population, or maybe 2,000. The real small towns.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to vote. Everybody gets to say something. And we're getting at that point where we're voting for people who represent us, but we're not asking them those questions as far as when you're about to do. If you're going to spend some money, it's in their scope of authority to do what they're doing. They haven't done anything illegal.
Sure.
But people are withdrawn. They're living their lives, and they're not paying enough attention.
Right.
And in this Common Core thing, 5 people decided for the whole state. People that are not elected, those people, they should be 24 of them, and they should be one in every Senate district, and they should be elected, and they should be held accountable for these kinds of actions.
So is this this is an extension of Race to the Top, Common Core, or is it part of it, or is it?
Common Core is, I think, officially done.
Oh.
But Race to the Top is the next generation of Common Core, and when the next Race to the Top has run its course, and we've spent all that money, then there will be something, I'm sure, to take its place to make public schools even better and our children that much better educated.
Right. So what?
So they say.
What is? Explain to us what is the issue with all of this, aside from obviously the funding problems. Is there sort of I guess perhaps a philosophical issue with having the federal government have that much control over local schools?
One size fits all education.
Yeah, one size fits all. Great point, Mel. I don't think it. What our children need to learn here, the basic things that our children need to learn: math, science, English, history. Those things are good to teach to all the students throughout the country, but I'm not sure that a particular curriculum is the exact same in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or San Diego, California, or Portland, Oregon, and Goffstown, New Hampshire. So I'm not sure that it is. And the biggest problem with this is taking that federal money, and it takes a lot of the work and responsibility out of the local teachers. The local teachers are not going to probably be teaching what they really want to be teaching. They're going to be teaching what the manual tells them to teach.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, is a constitution, not the manual.
Well, that would be a good thing for them to teach, though.
It would. Well, it would certainly be new.
Yeah.
And I certainly wish they would teach that book right there. But so I'm concerned, as a lot of other folks regarding Common Core, is that it's going to take the local control out of our schools, and it's going to take the local education out of our schools, and the master of the schools is going to be the U.S. Department of Education. And it's all going to be done through these major departments rather than the local teachers. And
how many school districts are there in New Hampshire at this time? Do you guys?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
No clue.
There was 2,600. There was over 2,600
Really?
in the 1850s.
Wow.
There was up until 1968, Article 6 of our Constitution in New Hampshire gave authority to the towns to create. It slowly got taken away with the Department of Education when they came into existence. But Article 6 was changed in 1968 to deny the towns the ability to create their own districts. So parents used to be able to get together if they disagreed and form their own districts. So there was over 2,600 school districts that were able to locally control their own curriculum back in the 1850s. So why is it that we're not doing that now? The parents of these kids are the ones who should be deciding what it is that they learn.
Right.
Not even, John's talking about cross-country on the federal level. That's absolutely absurd when you consider that it's even absurd to have people in Claremont learn the same thing that people in Nashua are learning. It's you take an agricultural community and you take an industrial community, and they're learning the same thing. It's just not. It's not feasible to think that it's ridiculous.
Sure.
Well,
before 1968, in the Constitution, there was a, I don't know, for the let's say there was close to a page of Article 6, Part 1, Article 6 of the New Hampshire Constitution. Today, after 1968, and somehow this got changed. I've heard it was a Constitutional Convention. I'm not quite sure that that's what happened, but somehow that entire Part 1, Article 6 of the Constitution got gutted, and which left basically nothing in here about education except the several parishes, bodies, comma, corporate, comma, or religious societies shall at all times have the right of electing their own teachers, and of contracting with them for their support and maintenance of both. So that's all there is in the Constitution today that talks about education.
Yeah.
Whereas before 1968, there was a page. They were.
This is it here.
Yeah, we have it here. I mean, it was just an amazing amount of material, and it also gave the people the right to choose their teachers. If they didn't like what you were teaching me at that school, I could move my children to that school.
Sure.
But it wasn't just religious. It wasn't.
But
just
it wasn't
choice.
just religious.
The towns had the same options. There was an 1868 decision from the New Hampshire Supreme Court that said each town had had at least as much authority to choose their own teachers, their own curriculum, and so on, as the parishes and the churches and the ecclesiastical, I think is the term they used, schools.
Evangelical.
Evangelical. To teach according to evangelical principles.
Right.
But the ecclesiastical schools and the non-ecclesiastical, I guess, but the towns had the same choice to create their own, to control everything. Doris Hohensee wrote this up. It's a 17-page write-up that she did on the breakdown from when our Constitution was written up and the original Article 6 that was in there, and through the process. And I can't remember how many times they tried to take the word town out of that.
Really?
How many times they tried to separate bodies corporate with a comma, and they finally got that done.
Yeah.
There's a whole process. It's at nhredress.info, www.nhredress.info. And if you look for it, you read that, and it explains everything that they've tried so hard to destroy our education.
Well,
and it's not just recent.
And you point out something too, Gus. People probably don't realize that, and John, you and I have talked about this, how in a document like the Constitution, one comma can make a big difference. One, changing just one word can change everything. It can really.
Sure can. A colon or a semicolon or
or
a comma, all these things make a big difference.
Right.
And and as we say, I say this all the time, that when we're gone and everybody is left with just what's been written down, all they really have in the future generations are the words that we left behind, because no one's going to know our intent. And no one's going to know how we felt about this. They're only going to be able to read this and try to make a story out of it and try to get direction from what the words say.
Yeah.
And the punctuation and all the marks in there. So it's a real big thing. And I also want to tell you, I'm absolutely not anti-education.
Yeah.
I am not anti-public education. I am not anti-teacher. I'm not anti-anything that has to do with educating our next generation of children to be able to make it in a worldwide competition. What I do support, though, is education choice and restoring the Constitution back to the point where the people are able to have the direction and give direction to their school districts. And right now, it's been taken out. It's kind of like, McDonald's. You deserve a break today, right? That great movie from Robin Williams was in it, and he was an ad consultant. But the point is, you go to every McDonald's in the country, and they're pretty much going to taste the same.
Oh, yeah.
So, picture that as your school. And picture that as your school. You go in there, there's your menu. It looks the same in Bangor as it does in Tampa. And it looks,
Right.
And it looks basically the same. And that works for those corporations, but you know what to expect. I go in a cup of coffee. I want a Newman's cup of coffee or Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I know what that's going to taste like, and pretty much most McDonald's I go to.
Well, and the other problem with something like Common Core is it very heavily focuses on standardized testing, which isn't a really good, accurate measure of education intelligence, because most standardized tests are math, reading comprehension, and like vocabulary and stuff like that. So it's not testing things like, knowledge of history, science.
And they're testing to see how you perceive the world. It's not just about your knowledge of the world. It's how do you perceive it? How are you going to relate with other people when you get out there? They're looking for things that they have no business looking into. And how do we fight this? Do we fight it by looking forward to the next election? Fighting it at the electoral level it's not something I'm really interested in. For instance, you have a senator that goes to Washington, and now we're stuck for 6 years. There's no way of removing them or changing that. They did in Colorado. They just recalled a couple in Colorado. But we, on the levels that we're talking about, how do we change things quickly and not have to put up with things for 2 years, 3 years? And if you don't get to elect the people that you want in office, then you're going to be stuck much longer than that.
Sure.
And, we have an Article 31 redress provision in our Constitution that says that the legislature shall assemble for the redress of public grievances and for making such laws as the public good may require. Now, that's a mandate, okay? And this is causing damage. It's common cause causing damage to the public. It's critical that this gets taken care of. And that mandate is there. It's a redress provision. The government is causing the people damage, the very government that's there to protect them. So this is a constituency petition. It takes priority over legislative bills because the people's safety is in jeopardy. And we're talking about children that are not going to get a second chance, and they're going to be steered by federal testing. The teachers are all going to adapt to those standards because they don't want their schools to be taken over by the federal government. So, this is critical. It's critical that it be heard, and it be heard soon.
Now, let me ask you guys this: and is there an acceptable level of federal oversight, shall we say, in terms of our schools, or should it be strictly local control, completely autonomous?
My answer, I think my first answer is no. No, I don't think the federal government should be trying to instruct anything in our schools.
Yeah.
And the other, just one quick point also that we discussed, what they're teaching. I'm concerned, and a lot of other parents are concerned, that they're teaching to actually pass these tests, not to learn what it takes. Because really a school education is to learn how to learn and not learn how to pass a test.
Right.
You should spend that 12 years, whatever time you have, learning how to learn. I know a lot of folks that didn't get a very good education, that didn't graduate from school, and they've made great things of their lives.
Sure.
I know people that have gone to school, public schools, private schools, charter schools, religious schools, all of them, homeschool. I'm not sure what the common denominator is of success and learning things, but there's a lot of folks that just don't fit into that mold that the public school system gives them.
Yeah.
And if you don't fit in that mold and you don't move along at that pace because you're thinking about, saving the world or curing something great or doing something that they're not teaching you, you're bored and you act, and they take you as a problem.
Right.
So this is where I think that the choice of education is critical for us, and the parents need to see that, because their choice is, I'm going to have to still pay my property taxes, for instance, but I'm going to have to come up with another $10,000 to send my son or daughter to this private school or this alternative education that I know that they'll excel in, but I don't have that money, and I have to give you this.
Right.
So the ultimate thing is to be able to choose where your child is going to go to school, and I would love to see your tax dollars follow your child's education.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that.
But that, the resistance to that is tremendous, because
to me it seems like common sense. It just seems like you should be able to direct your tax dollars to you know, and you mentioned property taxes. Is that primarily how we fund education in New Hampshire?
Absolutely. The schools don't have a right to tax, so that's
Yeah.
why you pay the town, and the town pays the school.
Yeah.
The school does not have authority to tax you.
Sure. Okay.
So their money, yes, comes through taxpayers, but it also comes through your phone bill, lottery.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the education, tobacco. You know, I found out that I think it was $150 million in tobacco tax from the state goes to education.
Right.
So, you know, I happened to be at an anti-smoking thing, but they had booths of, you know, and I asked one of the because they were talking about this. That's how I learned it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't know if it was a commissioner of education or director or somebody up there. I said, well, on one side, you're taking $158 million from tobacco, but on the other side, you're here to support to stop smoking.
Right.
So, you know, what are you going to do? You're so anyway. Education gets their money from a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And you know, it isn't just your property taxes. So, I don't know what that total number is, but it's in the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
And what about at the state level? Should the state do we still have a Department of Education in New Hampshire? I know we used to.
Yes,
we
do.
still do.
Yes, we
okay. I mean, I don't know how much control they currently have, but should the state of New Hampshire, the Department of Education, have some say? I mean, how autonomous do you want these towns to be?
Well, look at the problem. I mean, this whole Common Core problem is caused by the Department of Education.
Yeah.
They brought this in.
Okay.
Teachers were, you know, they're looking at their curriculum for this coming year, thinking, holy cow, we gotta meet these standards.
Sure.
You know, they were caught behind the 8 ball.
Right.
You know, they've got way too much control. And essentially, what's the object of teaching a child? Is it to teach them very specific things, or is it to teach a child how to learn? Because if you teach a kid how to learn, each child has separately their own individual things that they desire. Mm-hmm. They like cars, they like sports, they like whatever they like.
Right.
And to teach a child how to learn is to give them the gift of pursuing life. Because what they're going to be able to do
very well said.
is catch on to a desire that they have and pursue that. But if you don't teach them how to learn about those things, they're not going to go anywhere. I don't care how much, you know, exact cookie cutter education they get.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to be taught how to learn. That's the goal.
Absolutely.
It's not about what they learn.
Very, very well
History is
said.
very important because you need to know where you came from.
Yeah.
You know, and those in math, and I mean these things are all very important. But learning how to learn.
Yeah.
That's where the focus should be.
One of those things that struck me one time, I was at one of my local Rotary meetings, and in that was the superintendent of Goffstown High School, or Goffstown Schools District, was the superintendent, the past one. And the speaker that day, because we had speakers weekly, Rotary clubs do, and so we'll do most other great civic clubs. But the speaker that day was the new, I want to say, headmaster of Villa Augustina in Goffstown, which is a Catholic kind of a school, you know, a full-fledged licensed school by the state, but they don't receive the state funding, and it basically was going to close down. A bunch of parents, because it wasn't being supported by Goffstown School District or the SAU, so it was going to close down. Some parents wanted their children to keep going there, so they ended up buying it. They hired an administrator or a headmaster, I'm not sure what his title is, but they hired somebody to run this school for them.
Sure.
So it's opened up, and he was speaking that day, talking about barely making it, you know, not quite making enough to stay open, but they keep getting fundraisers and they keep getting donations and stuff. And, you know, in the audience of 10 or 15 that morning, you know, was the school superintendent for Goffstown, you know, working on a $38 million budget for the year. And it was like wow. I mean, it was just so out of balance.
Yeah.
It was so, we're all sitting there going, this guy's trying to do the great things. They're raising money. The parents paid. A bunch of parents got together and bought the place. They kept it going. They kept the ball fields there so the children could still play Babe Ruth and or Little League and softball fields and that stuff. And they really tried to do all this stuff on what they could raise for themselves. And I was looking at the superintendent. She couldn't say anything. She couldn't even ask a question without, I mean, where do you go with that?
Right, right.
It's like, it's like being the king and going, what's wrong with your life,
Right.
And, and the servants are going, but, I haven't showered in 10 years and I'd just like to have a drink of water. Oh, come on, suck it up.
Right, right. No empathy. Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's how it was. That's how I was feeling, and I walked away from that meeting thinking, wow. I mean, how can we help Villa Augustina? How can we help? That might even be before I ran for public office.
Yeah.
But that was the impression I left there going, how do we help these guys when they have a fundraiser?
Are they still open now?
Absolutely.
Oh, good for
Yeah,
them.
wonderful.
Good for
They're
them.
down about halfway between Connartonville and the center of Goffstown.
Okay. Oh,
Beautiful, great. Yeah, a lot of people have gone through that school.
no kidding.
Oh, yeah, wonderful education.
Let's talk about redress. And Gus, you mentioned it, but what is that for those who don't know?
Well, redress is the ability to petition your legislature for redress of grievances, and specifically I don't know where the different provisions are that allow the. One of them is here. This is the old Article 6. Says that the legislature, the people have the people fully empower the legislature to authorize from time to time the several towns, parishes, bodies, corporate, or religious societies within this state to make adequate provisions at their own expense for the support and maintenance of public Protestant teachers of piety, religion, and morality. So, these are the kinds of provisions that are in our Constitution that say the legislature may pass law for this purpose. And one of those is in Article 31. To make laws as necessary for the public good regarding the redress that they're listening to. So if the public is being damaged by something that the state has created under some other provision, this is an opportunity to correct or to fine-tune that those laws to make sure that nobody else is getting hurt.
Okay.
So that's redress.
Sounds reasonable.
And they can get remedy. Whoever filed this redress, they're looking for remedy because if they've been wronged and have lost something, then they deserve remedy if it's at the state's hands. And the other job of the legislature is to not only give remedy and to hear that case, but to prevent it from happening to somebody else in the future.
And the Senate and House journals, if you go to the Secretary of State archives and look through those journals, they heard petitions every day. Every day, multiple times a day. The Senate would go over in convention with the House, and they would listen to petitions. And if the petitions were simple enough, there was a militia member who lost his horse. He was petitioning for a reimbursement, and because it was because he was in the militia for the government, protecting the state, that he had lost his horse. So he was petitioning for reimbursement, granted on the spot. So if you take the old parchment and you flip it over, and on the backside, the Speaker of the House signed off, and then it was concurred by the Senate President. He signed off, and that was it. Take it down to the treasurer and get your money.
Yeah.
And petitions like this were very, very common. Suncook put a petition in once because they wanted 2 militia members to be permanently stationed in Suncook because the Indians were only 12 miles away and posed a threat. And I mean, you wouldn't believe the amount of petitions that are out there, but these are petitions that were there.
Yeah.
And in some cases, they were Article 31 petitions where they were instructing the government what to do. For instance, the Rockingham County racetrack, when that first came around in the 1940s, there was a very large petition for it and a very large petition against it. So those are Article 32 petitions. But the petition process was a very, very lively thing where the people were back and forth with their legislators, but redress is specifically about being compensated for damages done to you and for laws to be corrected so other people won't be damaged.
Okay. And where does that stand now? I mean, it doesn't
exist.
It doesn't exist. Now, we did have it for a while, correct?
We had a redress committee, and
Okay.
I was a petitioner, number 28, and Representative Heichel sponsored my petition, and it went through the whole process. There was a hearing. I testified for 3 hours, and after George Lambert, Representative Lambert, was the chairman of the subcommittee for that petition, and after 3 months roughly 2 months, they the determination they took a vote on the research or whatever they had done, and they found that my petition was founded 9-3, that I had been violated on three separate occasions by the state of New Hampshire. The problem is there's no redress. They had no authority to compensate me for the damage, nor did they have any authority to create any legislation. All they could do is recommend. And nothing was ever brought back to the House for a recommendation because it's bogged down in rules and
Sure.
you can only do this, you can only do that. And we have a Supreme Court decision here from the U.S. Supreme Court, Miranda versus Arizona. Everybody knows that case because of your Miranda rights. However, in that same case, it clearly says that where rights are concerned, there shall be no rulemaking or legislation that would abrogate those. And I'm not an exact quote, but you can't take somebody's rights away through rulemaking.
Yeah.
One of the problems we're looking at right now is this petition that we're putting in for Common Core. I wrapped it up this weekend, got it online last night, but the filing deadline was Friday.
Yeah.
So here we're going to put a petition in, possibly 10,000, 20,000 people are going to sign it, but they don't have the right to be heard because, hey, you didn't meet the deadline.
Right. Now, why? So why did this go away? The redress. It was called the Redress Committee.
The Redress Committee went away. The Democrats took over the control of the House, and it's not something that they. I don't know if they're looking at a substitute process that they want to use, but it was only for 2 years with Speaker O'Brien.
Okay. Because it seems like, again, it seems like one of those common sense things. Why have they ever? Have any of these folks who voted against it have they ever explained publicly, or was it just kind of a quiet thing? We'll just kind of quietly do away with this. Because I didn't even know this existed until it was when George Lambert. I think it was the first time he came on Rock Paper Hand Grenades, because this is an issue that he's very passionate about, and I remember him discussing it. And I had no idea that this committee had ever even existed, and of course by that point it was already either gone or on its way out. But I mean, has anyone ever given an explanation as to why they felt that it shouldn't stay?
No, leadership didn't want it for them.
Yeah.
And most legislators, but especially the majority party today, unfortunately followed blindly the leadership, and they said, get rid of this one, get rid of that one. Don't let legislators defend themselves on the House floor. Don't let by being able to carry a personal protection device.
Sure.
And so they voted against that, and here we go. We got rid of the Redress Committee.
Yeah.
But the Redress Committee
I didn't
itself,
mean to, just to clarify, I didn't mean to make it sound like it's a Democrat thing, the reason we don't have this. There's just as many Republicans that are not interested in redress.
Really?
I mean, for the most part, for the
Wow.
most part, I mean, I guess one thing is they followed their leadership that didn't want Redress Committee.
Sure.
The second thing is none of them have ever read the Constitution
Right.
or have any idea what redress really is. So, I mean, it's a mandate. We're one of the few states in the nation, in the Federation of the United States of America, that have in their Constitution a mandate that a redress shall be. We shall do it. The legislature shall assemble. That isn't can, may, could be, possibly. That's shall assemble, because we understand what shall means when we write that in law.
Sure.
In any statute, we understand what shall is, and there's no wiggle room for shall. The legislature shall assemble for the redress of public grievance, and that's the people's right to have the power against the government when they've been wronged by it.
Yeah. Accountability.
It's to hold them accountable. Period.
Yeah.
And and you mentioned George is coming on the show next week. George and I are good friends, and I want to speak to him about redress. I'm assuming that he's completely on board with us and our petition, but I certainly hope so, because this is the way for the people to speak out. This isn't me.
Right.
I'm going to be filing this with redress petition with the House clerk and the House leadership, but this isn't me. This isn't for me. This is for the petitioners that have signed that.
Sure.
And again, that bill that diminished our rights of self-defense had 540 signatures on that. And there may be more online because we have it online on the website, www.nhredress.info.
Can you just explain redress really quick again?
Redress is the right of the people to receive remedy and to have something fixed, or it's the right of the people to ask their government for something. Some towns in the past asked their town, they wanted to build a bridge. Some towns wanted to be formed. So the redress was the right of the people to bring their concerns and their complaints and their damages to the legislature, because the legislature in this state, this is a home rule state, so whatever happens in the legislature is what gives everybody else authority to do anything, including the courts, including the towns, local governments, everything, all of us. So what happens in the legislature, and if you've been wronged by any of that process or you need something done, you're supposed to be able to take it right to the legislature, who's making those decisions, and have them hear it and possibly fix it if something's been wrong.
So you're saying that we can't do that anymore?
We absolutely can do that, but the problem is, the problem that I'm facing, the problem that we have all the time is that, from 1600s or 15, I don't know when, a long time ago, to maybe mid-1800s, early 1900s, sometime, there was tens or hundreds of thousands of these that happened. There's in the state archive, for instance, there's about 2,964 pages of about 100 entries per page of redress petitions.
Wow.
That happened.
Yeah.
So, 2,960 times 100 is 296,000.
Yeah.
This happened. This was the way to do business for the people to bring their issues, whatever they wanted. You want to build a.
There was all sorts of petitions.
Whatever it was, this farmer got, his property line got moved. The state, killed some pigs. Governor Stark was petitioning the legislature to pay his soldiers. All of this stuff. It happens. That's how it happened. Today, today you have to.
Well, look, recently, in the last few months, the legislature here has granted a petition, the only one that I know of in the last 100 years. They granted a petition to free the slaves who put a petition in 1779 before the Constitution was ratified. Okay,
that's
so
about the speed of government.
They recognize
right, yeah.
they recognize that the petition process is still a valid process.
Right.
They just.
But without the committee, the mechanism
okay.
is much more difficult.
The committee was okay. The problem with the committee that we had was it didn't have any authority, and the way that this is done that I researched and what I've read is that the redress would be presented to the legislature in a joint session, the House and the Senate. They'd hear this redress. If they couldn't make a decision or they needed more information, they would form a committee, and that committee would hear the petition, and they would go out and they'd get more evidence, and they'd go research, and they'd go find out. They'd get the answers. The committee would get the answers to give to the legislature to come up with a redress, to come up with a remedy.
Yeah.
The problem is we had a committee listening to this stuff, but it couldn't go any further than that.
Sure.
It doesn't start in the committee. It starts in the legislature and goes to the committee if they can't come up with an answer that day.
And
Okay.
that was that committee that John's talking about on these petitions. These were ad hoc committees. These petitions were read in the joint house of our legislature, and if it couldn't be addressed immediately on the spot, they would form an ad hoc committee of people who knew about those particular things that petition was about. They didn't. The redress committee was handling everything from. My petition had to do with two Supreme Court judges here that violated my rights, and there was other petitions where you had family court issues, and these people were trying to. George and the other people on the committee, Kevin Avard, they were trying to understand all these different issues. Was
there something with Dover or Somersworth, Rochester,
something about the minutes not being kept and making official decisions? They were handling a huge variety And these are not people that are experts in that particular field. You can't be an expert in banking and an expert in family law and an expert. So traditionally, the petitions were brought before the legislature, according to Article 31. They were read before the legislature, and if they were too complicated, an ad hoc committee was formed on the spot, and that petition went to that committee specifically to be resolved. That committee was made up of both House members and Senate members, whatever was necessary to resolve this process, this petition. And then the recommendation of that committee was brought before the general court again at the next, and they scheduled, if you look at the journals, they scheduled these general court in convention sessions pretty much daily.
No kidding.
For the purpose of redress.
But they did.
Yeah.
That's what they mandated to do, not discuss all the other things, whether the state drink should be, apple cider or water,
Right.
and all the other things. I mean, we have a lot of other duties to do today. And if, and we're all volunteers basically. It's $100 a year. I love it. I do it for nothing. I certainly don't do it for the money.
Right.
But I really enjoy being up there and learning about this stuff. But Article 31, we talk about 31 as the petition of the redress, as the legislator. But 32 is a follow-up to that. The people have a right in an orderly and peaceable manner to assemble and consult upon the common good, give instructions to their representatives, and to request of the legislative body, by way of petition or remonstrance, redress of the wrongs done them and of the grievances they suffer. June 2nd, 1784. Right? Stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Hasn't been changed since then. I would argue that many people have ever read it since then.
Right.
But those of us that have, that's pretty simple English. We understand what this means. And it's not being done in Concord right now. And I'm appealing to the people out there that are watching. Contact your legislators. Tell them that you want redress. You want to be represented in the House. You personally. You're leaving it up to them to do your job. And, a lot of them aren't there to do your job. A lot of them are there to do their job.
Right.
And, special interest and
people need to be held accountable too.
and people need, and you need to hold your legislators and magistrates accountable to the people. And
Oh, keep going.
oh,
It's like I'm in school and I raise my hand and wait for my turn.
oh, no, we're just, this is a round table. I mean, I have so much to talk about that. I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah.
Because, people are being wronged all the time, and they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And then what they think is the answer to this is, let's wait till the next election. We'll get rid of them. Well, the reality is they don't get rid of them unless there's this wave to move, party kind
Right.
of stuff.
People say throw the bums out, but then when it's time to go vote, they say, oh, well, we'll throw the bums out except for my legislator. I like him. We'll
Right.
keep him. And that's,
Redress.
So I'm
the
having
answer
a
is
hard
redress.
yeah.
I'm having a hard time understanding this because from what you guys are describing, redress is the right if the town has an issue that they can go to the legislator and stuff. But
People. If
Okay.
people. This
If
is about the people.
Okay, so if people have the right, they can go to the legislator. But it's why do they need some special redress? Why can't they just do that? What does redress do exactly, and what does it take away now that we don't have it?
If I have a beef with somebody, I take it to a regular court, small claims court. If I have a beef with the state has the authority to change the administrative rules to some department that Department of Agriculture or Department of Transportation. They oversee that. So if I have a serious problem with something that's going on, let's say with the Department of Transportation, I go through redress. I go and represent the rest of the people in New Hampshire who probably have the same problem. If I have a distinct issue with the Department of Transportation, then it's probably not just me, and therefore it should be addressed by the state. But that's where you go to court to resolve an issue with the state. It's not, for instance, my issue is with 2 Supreme Court judges. Where am I supposed to go? I can't go to the courts.
Yeah.
So the only option for me was to go to the legislature, and they found in my favor, but nothing happened because the process is being is being poo-pooed,
Right.
It's just not what we do anymore.
It's almost like telling your troubles to a bartender,
Yep.
A sympathetic ear, but
It was
no
just
power.
like that.
I get more satisfaction from Sears customer service.
Yeah.
The definition of redress is to put in order again, to set right, to amend, to emend, to revise, to set right as a wrong, to repair as an injury, to make amends for, to remedy, to relieve from those wrongs, those bitter injuries. So that's what redress is.
Yeah.
If you've been, if that's happened to you at the hands of the state, then as a people, with a capital P, as a people, as the people who own the government, and the government should be servants to you.
Exactly.
You have the right of redress to your legislature to right the wrongs that have done to you.
But we can't anymore because there's no longer redress.
Well, you can still file
No,
a petition,
there
right? But
absolutely is redress. We
there's
just
no
need
committee.
we just need to get them to listen to us.
Yeah.
Because if you also go to this Article 10 in here, for instance, the word shows up again. Government being instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the whole community, and not for the private interests or emollient of any one man, family, or class of men. Therefore, whenever the ends of government are perverted and public liberty manifestly endangered, and all other means of redress are ineffectual, the people may, and of right ought, to reform the old or establish a new government. Certainly not looking to do that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, everybody's smart enough to say, you know what, we need to just hear these. We need to hear these petitions.
Right.
We need to listen to the people, because the people have all the rights, they have all the power, but there's ways for that to get squelched and to people to feel intimidated and afraid.
Well, yeah, people
And
get
they-
discouraged, and they look for solutions, and the machine of government just kind of discourages them, and
Right. Well, because they don't have redress.
Right. Yeah.
Because they don't
Yeah.
know how to redress.
Yeah.
They don't know how to redress their legislators.
exactly, yeah.
It was 2 years ago.
If they understood this, if they understood this, all these problems would go away.
Right.
There was over 30 petitions.
That's the red button.
Yeah.
That's the red button that the president carries around. Some guy next to him carries it around.
Yeah, the nuclear football.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Russians, the Chinese,
Redresses.
some stuff's really happening.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing we ever want to do. But there's the red button. Well, here's the red button,
Right.
and it's called redress.
Absolutely.
Redress.
Is there a way people can get involved in this cause, this specific?
Go to www.nhredress.info
Okay.
and just start reading.
Okay.
If you go to www.nhredress.org, that's the site that I set up to explain this.
Okay.
The other thing is, Dan Itza, Paul Mirsky, Paul Ingbertson, former reps, there's a lot of reps who know about this. They need to start becoming a lot more vocal, expressing how to correct things and how to move this process back into the public light.
Right.
Because to keep it quiet is we're not going to get any redress.
Yeah, because I guarantee you the average citizen has no idea
They don't
what
know.
redress even means.
The average legislator doesn't either.
The average legislator
It's
does not.
not the average anybody doesn't understand what it means.
Yeah.
Because it's in there. It's in a book that nobody. Ask people if they know that the New Hampshire Constitution exists.
Right.
And they'll tell you, 9 out of 100 will probably tell you never heard of it.
Right. We only have a couple minutes left. John, do you want to? We should mention your auto shop again while you're here.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's Uptown Auto Repair.
Yep.
It's in Pennardville, 578 Mass Road, but it's Goffstown. I hate to say Pennardville, but if I say Goffstown, people say it's too far away. So I say
okay.
Pennardville. It's across the Kelly Street Bridge. Take a right.
Yeah.
It's next to Dunkin' Donuts and across the Rite Aid.
Okay, fantastic. And you're returning later, right, for Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades? You'll be with us for that, too? Excellent.
Yes,
Pulling double
right.
duty. Yeah.
Right. And then I'll be on Rich Gerard tomorrow morning at 6:20.
No
so
kidding.
listen live on that. And, we'll be talking about a bunch of stuff. I'm energized. Business is great. Life is
Good.
great. And, I want to try to talk to the people and get them engaged. And I'm not doing this for any higher office or any personal gain of any sort. This is a big deal. This is what the people need to get a hold of.
Do you plan to run for re-election next term? Or?
I'll
Haven't
probably
decided
run
yet?
for state rep, yeah.
Yeah.
But I really like the planning board in Goffstown. So
Do you? Yeah.
I will absolutely put my name on the ballot for the March election
Yeah.
in a Goffstown in the local race.
Oh, fantastic. Gus, you got anything to plug other than the site you mentioned?
No, just I'm with John.
Yeah.
You know, redress is where it's at.
Yeah.
You know, John said last night, you know, we need to talk about redress until it becomes the new green.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Right,
It's
exactly.
what we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you coming back with us too later? Will you be here?
I'll
for
be
a while?
on tonight with John.
Excellent.
And with tomorrow morning with Rich.
Oh, fantastic. So these guys will be back later for Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. We're about out of time, so I want to remind everybody, of course, today was Little Mel's last show with us here today, this week, but you can still hear her Monday nights at 10:30 on No Boundaries on IPMNation.com, live every Monday night. And want to remind everybody again, I will not be here next week either, but the Honorable George Lambert will be guest hosting, and he is exploring a possible run for governor, so want to remind everybody of that as well. Would you guys like to endorse him live here on TV? Putting you on the spot.
I'd like to hear his opinion on redress.
I figured you'd say, well, we know his opinion on redress. I'm just kidding. You don't have to endorse him right now. He's not. He hasn't even.
I endorse him.
I like George.
I do
I
endorse
really
him.
like George, and
Yeah.
you know, I'd say, you know, sure, he's a great guy, he's a good friend, but again, I don't want to take all the time. I know we're finishing up.
It's okay.
But the next candidate that I support and back up, they better understand redress. They better understand the Constitution, and they better understand defending the people's rights out here, and stop working for big government, and stop trying to expand everything and tax us all to death.
Okay. But you're considering endorsing George Lambert.
I'm considering exploring.
Considering exploring.
Endorsing George Lambert.
Fantastic. You heard it here first. All right, so that'll do it for this week's Matt Connarton Unleashed. I will see you all. Well, actually, I'll see you all at 4 o'clock with Norm, and of course at 6 o'clock with Gary and these fine gentlemen. And beyond that, I'll see you again in 2 weeks. George will be here next week. Little Mel, thank you for everything.
Thank you, Matt.
And guys, thank you. I'll see you in a few hours. And that's it. I'll see the rest of y'all later. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.